Today, I want to deal with functions, but before then, let's quickly write the solution to the assignments I gave to us in the last class. And in that, I said you want a situation whereby you tell your users to input CGPA, and if the CGPA is between 0 to 0.99, you print out fail. If it's between 1 to 1.5 or 1.49, you print out third class. Then 1.49 to maybe 1.5 to 2.5, maybe 2 to just do that, something like that. So let's do it together. I can say variable score, and I can say score equals to, I create an input and I'll say enter your score. So we know that this is a string, it's going to be a string, but what we want to compare with is not a string, but instead is a float, something like 0.99. This is a float, so I will convert this now to floats. So this will convert whatever value the user enters here. This float will convert it to a floating number, that is a number, a decimal number. So let's assume the user entered 2, it will be converted to 2.0. So let's proceed. Next is this. I can now check if the value entered, if the value of score now is greater than 5.0, or score is lesser than 0, what do we want to do? If the value of score is greater than 5.0 or score is lesser than 0, then we can say print out of range. So if I enter a high number that's greater than 5 or lesser than 0, it's print out of range. Let's go to the next thing. Else, I can say elif, that is if this condition is not met. So meaning if I enter any number now between 0 and 5.0, if I enter any number within that range, then what do we want to do? So I can say if else, elif, if the value of score is greater than or equal to 4.5, then print first class. So let's assume the user entered 4.6. 4.6 does not meet this condition. It doesn't, because 4.6 is not greater than 5.0 and is not lesser than 0. So it's not going to do this, but it meets this condition. 4.6 is greater than 4.5. 4.6 is greater than 4.5. So that will print first class. Let's do another one. Elif score is greater than or equal to 3.5. Then we can say print second class offer. Okay, someone wants to join. Let me quickly admit the person. Welcome, sir. So we can have another one. If score is greater than or equal to, I think maybe 2.5, then we can have we can have then if score is equal to I think 1.5, we can print third class else. Then if score is equal to 1.0, we can print fail, pass. Then finally else if score greater than or equal to 0, or we can even just say else. We can do the final else, depending on, it's still fine. Else print fail, or you can also write it this way. Instead of writing else, you can just say else if score greater than or equal to 0, print fail. So you can use any of these two and you still have the same result. So let's explain what's going on. When I enter any number whatsoever, when we enter any number whatsoever, what it's going to do is it will check if that number is greater than 4.5, is greater than 5.0 or lesser than 0. So let's assume the user entered 8 meets this condition. So it's going to print out of range. But if the user entered, let's say 3.2, good, 3.2. You see 3.2 meets this. 3.2 does not meet this because 3.2 is not greater than 4.5. 3.2 does not meet this because it's not greater than 3.5. It meets this condition, so it's going to print second class lower. So let's assume the user entered, let's say 4.7. 4.7 meets this condition, but at the same time it meets this condition because it's greater than 3.5. It also meets this condition. In fact, 4.7 meets every condition here except the very first one. So, but I told us that the way if statement works is that once it meets a condition, it's not going to bother itself checking others. So because 4.7 meets this condition, it's going to print first class without checking others. So that will print first class. Let's assume the user enter, let's say 3.8. 3.8 means this condition. It also meets this, it means this, it means, but because once it sees this, that is true, it's going to print second class upper and it will terminate. Do we have any question? Any question? Hello everyone.
Hello.
Do you have any questions?
Me too.
Yes,
Hello.
okay, let's proceed. So this is the assignment. Let's run it and see if it's working fine. Then we can now proceed to today's topic. Enter a score. Let's say I entered 9 out of range. Let me make it better. Just that's going to be one level. So let's say we entered 2.1 class, start class. Then let's say we entered 4.34 now second class upper. So let's say we enter 0.2, that will fail. Then let's say we entered -5, that's a negative number, out of range. So let's now go to today's topic. Today we are going to functions. Python functions. What is a function in Python? What does it mean? Let's look at why we need function in our codes. What we're going to do is this. I'll say print hello, print hi, print good. Of course, if I run this code, you will see hello, you will see I, and you will see good in your code. Let's execute it. You have to start. But then the problem is this. What if I want to do this thing again? I want to see hello, I am good. Just the same way we've done. So it means I have to copy this code and paste it again. But I'll be able to run these codes again. So I have to copy this code and paste it again. Then now, if I want to see it again, then it means I have to copy and paste. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind is this: the more your codes, the slower your software. The slower your software. That's one. Two is this: you might say that, well, what we have here is just 9 lines of code, and maybe the impact is not much. But just imagine something. Imagine we have 100 lines of code here, 100 lines, and you want to run the whole 100 lines again. So does that mean that you will copy all the 100 lines and repaste them? So that's one of the things you do with functions. Instead of writing it now, functions allows you to follow a programming principle. We call it dry. Dry. Dry stands for don't repeat yourself. You don't repeat yourself. So it allows us to don't repeat yourself. One, then as time goes on also, we're going to see other benefits of function. But we understand what we want to use functions for, a function for now, so that if we want to do the same thing again, we won't have to write the same codes. We won't have to. So this is how a function works. We are going to save these codes inside a container. These codes, we save it inside a container. Now, whenever we want to run these codes now, we can now call on that container to run these codes. Now, this is different from a variable. A variable just store like a value, but this is able to store much more than a value. It's able to store a lot of things. You can even store if statement inside that container, and that's what a function is. That's how it works. We are going to be storing all of this inside a container. Then, whenever you now want to run all of this at any point in time, just call on that container. Any question? Any question before we proceed?
No question.
Okay, let's continue. Thank you, sir. So let's see how to create this function, this container. How we come here to create a function in Python? Use this word def. Then let me just def. D-E-F. Once Python sees this word def, it knows that you want to write a function. Like, you want to define a function. That's what, like, function definition, that's what this def stands for. You want to define a function. You want to create a function. Now, after writing def, the next thing is the name of your function. Just like you have variable, but in Python, you don't, if you want to write a variable, you just write the variable name, like that. But here, before side def, that distinguishes a function from a variable. That makes Python to know that, oh, this is a function. Then next, you write the name of the function. So I can call it, let's just say first, I'll just say first function. So I can call it any name of my choice. But please, the name of your function should not be a key word. Like, this name must follow all the rules that guide variable declaration. It must follow all the rules that guide variable declaration. So here I have a function called first func. That's the name of this function. Then next, you put a parenthesis at the front of that function, like this. Just for now, just know that this parenthesis is Babel's theorem. Like, you just need to put it at the front of. We are going back to the parenthesis later. Just know that when to create a function, you write this word def, then the name of the function, then you put a parenthesis after that name. We are done. Next is to put a colon. This column means, oh, I'm done with the name of my function. I'm done with it. Next is, what do I want to do? What do I want to save inside this function? Again, to create a function, you write def, then you put a name, the name of the function, then you put parentheses at the front like this. Then next, you put a colon at the front. Now, I've successfully created the name of my function. Next is to save values or to save items inside this function. So like we had the other time, just note this indentation. Indentation is very important in Python programming. Indentation. This indentation means that whatever we want to write now will be within this function. So we can say, sir, Alyssa.
Hey, please go on. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So this indentation means that whatever you want to write now will be within this. Is within this function. If I write it here, it's not within that function. Just like we have in if statement, you can press this spacebar 4 times, or you press your tab once. So next is to keep items within this function. Next, I'll say hello. I'll print I. Then I'll print good. So in this case now, I'm saving these 3 lines inside this function. Note this indentation. I'm saving these 3 lines within this function. Now, if you run this code, if I run my code now, I'm not going to see anything. I want us to know something. Let me try this. We didn't see anything, and that's because the way a function works is that whenever you have a function is not going to Python will not run the codes within a function except you call on that function. What we have here is we've created a function and we've put item inside that function, but in order to execute the commands within that function, we need to now trigger that function. We need to call on that function. If you don't call on a function, Python will not execute the commands within the function. In fact, the way Python works is that when Python is reading codes and it gets to a function, it only reads the name of the function but ignores every other thing within that function. Again, when you run this, Python only reads the name of a function, but it's going to ignore whatever we have within that function. So in this case, when we execute this command, Python only saved the name. It only read the name. But after reading the name, Python will ignore all of this. It will. And go to the next line. So let's say we have another code outside this function. Print taille. This taille is outside this function because it is not indented. It's not within this function. It's outside. So Python will save this name, then skip all of these codes and jump to this place to print this taille, but it's not going to do all of this. I want us to note that. Let's run this to see the result ourselves. So we have this. So next is, how then do you make Python execute the commands within a function? To do that, all you need to do is to call on the name of that function and put parentheses at the front. The name of this function is first function. Then we can now put parentheses at the front. This parenthesis is very important. This parenthesis is the one that will tell function that, oh, Python, go and execute the commands within that function. So let's do it this way. Let's say print. So let's see how Python is going to run this code. When we run this now, Python will save the name, skip all of this, then it will see this print taille, then it will print taille. On getting to line 6, it should now see this line. Once you call on the name of a function and you put a parenthesis at the front, instantly it's going to execute all the commands within that function. So with this line 6, it will execute all of these commands. Any question?
None.
Okay, so let's run this and see the result ourselves.
Please, can you repeat that part?
Okay. Now, this is a function. We've created a function. But the way Python works is that all the codes in a function, all of them are ignored. Python only saves the name of the function, but it ignores all codes within that function. It's not going to see the codes within that function. That's the reason if you run these codes now, you won't see anything. That's because Python only saves the name of the function, but it will ignore everything within that function. So let's assume we have a code here. Let's say James. When we run this, Python will only save this name, ignore everything within this function, and jump to this place. That's because this print James is not within that function. Remember indentation. So since it's not indented, it means it's not within the function. When we run this, Python will save this name and then it will print out James. We have this. Next is, we now want Python to execute the commands within that function. How do you do that? All you need to do is to call on the name of this function. The name of this function is first function. Call on the name. First function. After calling on the name, you put this parenthesis at the front. What this means is, this parenthesis, in fact, this parenthesis is the one that is telling Python to go and execute the commands within the function. Call on the name of the function and put parentheses at the front. Instantly, once it sees this parenthesis at the front of this function, it will search for this function called first function, and this is the function here. Then once it sees this parenthesis, it will execute the commands within that function. Do you understand that?
Yes.
So let's run this and see the results. We have this. So as you can see, I want us to know something. This James is before this LO, I and good. Why is it like that? That's because when Python wants to execute it, like I said, it will only save this name. It's going to ignore all of this. Then when it gets to this line, it will print out James, and that's this James that we have here. Then when it gets to line 6, it will see the name of the function and the parentheses at the front of it. Because of that, it will now look for that function and execute everything inside that function. So because of that, it will print out these 3. Do you understand? So that's why we have this coming after James. Question before we proceed. If we want to repeat what is inside this function again, all we just need to do is to call on the name of the function and put parentheses at the front again. With this now, it will execute all the commands inside this function again. If I still want to repeat it, very simple, call on the name of the function and put parentheses at the front. Again, it will execute all the commands within that function. Let's run it and see the results. So we have James, LOI good, that's for the first one. We have another LOI good, that's for the second one. LOI good, that's for the third one. With that, if we have 100 lines of codes within this function, I want to execute the 100 lines of codes again. All we need to do is just to write the name of the function and put parentheses at the front. Any question? So let's proceed. Class work. You can add it in the comment section. You can add the type solution in the comment section, or you can also share your screen. Anyone that's more convenient for you. Create a function. I don't know, you can give it any name of your choice. Create a function, and whenever I call on that function, I want to see Monday, then Tuesday, then Wednesday. Again, create a function. Whenever I trigger that function, whenever I call on that function, I'll see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Meaning that if I call on that function 3 times, I'll see, if I call on that function 3 times, I'll see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday 3 times also. If I call on that function 4 times, I'll see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday 4 times. Please, let's do that. Create a function. You can call it function, maybe get days or function my days, or just give it any name of your choice. Then whenever we call on that function, let it display Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Alright, I'll be waiting for us.
Please, can you repeat the assignment, the classwork? Sorry.
Okay, so the classwork is create a function. Whenever we call on that function, we want to display Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So if we call on that function 3 times, we will see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday 3 times. If we call on that function 5 times, we will see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday 5 times. So each time I call on the function, you're going to see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay, you can share your screen or drop it at the comment section.
All right, I want to share mine.
Is that okay?
I'm sharing mine.
Yes, I'm seeing it. Oh, sorry. Okay, I can see it. Good. Correct. Correct.
Hi, Taiwo.
Okay, I can hear you.
Yeah, can you see this one also?
I can't hear you.
I said, can you see the screen I shared?
No.
Oh, okay. How about now?
No.
Huh, that's strange. Huh. Let me stop and share again.
Is that
I said, I'll stop it and then share it again.
okay? Oh, please share it again. Okay, now it's loading. The page is blank.
Oh, blank? How about now?
Still blank.
Oh, I don't know what's going on. I can actually see myself sharing. Can any other person see the screen apart from Taiwo?
Well, I think I can see. Um,
I can see it.
Wow.
I don't. Okay, yeah, I can see it. Solitary. Am I right?
Yes, that's right.
Solitary. I can see it.
Taiwo, I guess you're the only one not seeing it.
Okay, let me check out my phone. Okay, let me leave and join again.
Okay.
Okay, I can see your screen now. Yes, correct. Correct. Good. So we can now create functions. Let's proceed and see some other things we can do with functions.
Hello, Taiwo. Can you please check your WhatsApp?
Okay. Okay, I've seen your solution. Correct. But let's proceed. So let's see some other things we can do within a function. I'm going to create a function now, and I'll call it my func. Then you can create a variable within a function. So I can say variable name equals to.
Can you share me your screen, please?
Oh, sorry. Can we see my screen now? Can we see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we can create a variable within a function, and I can say input, so enter your name, enter your name. So this function, when we call on it, is going to prompt the user to enter his or her name. Then we can now say print hello plus name. So once we call on this function, it will tell the user hello plus name. Let's run this function together. Oh, what's going on is we are here to call on this function. Remember, all the codes in a function will be ignored until you call on that function. So let's call on this function. Like this. Now, the question again, what do you think will happen if I have this here? What do you think will happen if I run this code?
You still haven't called on the function, so it won't print anything yet.
Good. That's because when we run this code, it will save this name but ignore everything. So since it's going to ignore this line 4 also, since this line 4 is within this function, we are not going to see anything. Good. But if we do this, which I won't advise that we do anyway, what we want to do now, if we do this, then we're going to run into a little problem. Let's look at the problem together. I'm not going to run it, I'll just explain what will happen. When we call on this function here, calling on this means that it's going to execute all the commands within this function. That means it will tell us to get the name, it will print this, that is hello plus the name, then it will see this line. This line means call on the function again. So it executes all the commands inside this function again. Name, print hello plus name, then call on the function again. Or execute the command. It will keep doing that over and over and over and over again. Do you understand the explanation?
Hello?
No.
I think it's the line 5 that will call on the function again.
No, line 5 will only call on the function the first time. Let's say if there's no line 5, when we run this code, we won't see anything. That's because all the codes in a function are ignored until we trigger that function. And since all these codes are within this function, then, and we didn't trigger that function at any point, of course you can say that, well, we are calling on it on line 4. But then, before it can see the codes on line 4, we need to first trigger this function. Since the codes on line 4 is also within this function, like a function, I just want us to know that a function can call on itself. In this case, if we run this code, we are not going to see anything because these 3 lines are all within this function. And we know that if we don't call on a function, it's not going to see the commands within that function. I told us that when we run this code, it will only save the name of the function and ignore every other thing within that function. For that reason, it will ignore all of this. Python will only save this name and ignore other things. So when we run this, we are not going to see anything. But when we have this, what happens is Python saves this name, ignore every other thing, that is line 2, line 3, and line 4. It will ignore distance within this function. Now on getting to line 5, it will call on that function. Do we understand to that point?
Yes.
Okay, so line 5 we call on that function, meaning it's going to run the commands within that function. Now, and you will agree with me that line 2 is within that function, line 3 is within that function, and line 4 is also within that function. So meaning that when we call on the function on line 5, it's going to execute all the commands within that function. Those commands include line 2, line 3, and line 4. Do you understand to that point?
Yes.
Okay, on line 2, it will tell the user to enter his or her name. On line 3, it will print the name, hello plus name. Then on line 4, it will call on that function again, because that's what you are doing on line 4. We are calling on, the name of this function is myfunc. So it's going to call on that function again and execute all the commands within that function. And what are the commands within that function? You are getting the name, you are printing hello plus the name, and you are calling on the function again. So again, it will call on that function again and execute all the commands again. So it's tell the user to enter name, it will print out this, and it execute the command. On getting to this place again, call on the function again. So it keep doing that. I hope you understand. Let's run it and see it together. Enter your name. Let's say Kenny. So enter your name again. Let's say James. Enter your name again. Let's say John. Enter your name. Let's say Titi. Do you understand what's going on now? Any question? So like I can keep doing this till eternity.
So it's safe to say that if you put that line 4, you're able to keep repeating yourself.
Yes. Yes.
I see.
We call this recursion.
Can you spell that, please?
Recursion. The recursion is like something that is recursive, that keeps happening, something like that. For instance, day and night, the next day another day and night. At the end of the day, at the end of the night, we go again. We start another day and night, another day and night. And so it keeps occurring and reoccurring and reoccurring. Like recursion is something that, let me say, recurrence and something that keeps reoccurring. So this is recursion. So I just want us to say that it's possible for a function to call on itself. That's one. Let's look at another thing together. Do you have any question pertaining what this explanation, as regarding this explanation? I also want us to note that it's possible for a function to call on another function. Let's do that together. I'll get another function. I will call it maybe new function or second function. Let's call it second function. Inside this, I'll just say print, how are you? Sorry, a minute please. Okay, let's proceed. Let's proceed. Sorry. So we have a function. We have the first function and we have the second function. This second function is going to print how you. So we can now say, let me just reduce this and make it just something, a simple line. I'll say hello. Then we can now come here and say my func. If you run this code, what do you think we will see on the screen? If you run this command, if you execute this code, what what do you think we'll be seeing on the screen? From the explanation of functions, if you execute this command, what do you think we'll see on the screen?
How are
I
you?
I think you would say, "How are you? Hello, hola."
Okay, if we run this, let's look at it together. We have a function, my func.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, Python will ignore all the codes within that function. We have another function, second func. Again, Python will ignore all the codes within that function. Then on getting to line 8, you are calling on the second function, meaning that it will now go back and execute all the commands in second function. So that means it's going to print how are you. When it's done, it's going to see my func that you are calling on my func
And execute it.
and execute it again. So you first see how are you, then you see hello.
Wow.
Let's terminate this. Okay. So we have how are you, then we have hello.
Hello.
Any questions so far? Okay. Let's now start combining things together. We've looked at if statement. So you can use your if statement within a function. If statement within a function. I can say, maybe, let's say we have a variable here called variable. Let's say var is 6. So we can now say if I want our if statement here, if var is lesser than 5, then times, let's say it's not something like this. So note this indentation. This indentation shows that this if statement is within this function. And this indentation here shows that this print small is within this if statement. I come again. The indentation on line 6 shows that this condition here, this condition here is within this function, meaning that until I call on this function, it's not going to see this if statement at all. Then this print small is indented. That shows is within this if statement. So that for it to be able to print this small, this condition must be met. But as you can see, these two are not indented, they are not like this. It shows that they are not dependent on this condition. They are outside the if statement, although they are within the function. Meaning that line 8 and line 9 will only be executed when you call on that function, second func. But they are not within the if statement. That means that whatever happens here does not concern line 8 and line 9. So whether this condition is true or not, line 8 and line 9 will always be executed whenever we call on this function. Do you understand?
No, please take that again.
Okay. We have an if statement within a function. This is a function. And I now said this if statement is indented, not this space. That shows it is within this function. If it were to be like this, it means it is outside the function. Meaning, when we run this code, it's going to run the codes within the if statement, whether we call on this function or not. This shows it is outside the function. But with this, it shows it is within the function. And that means that this if statement, this line 6, will only be executed when we call on this function, since it is within the function. Do we understand it to that point?
Yes.
Now, I now explain further that this is another indentation. This is another space. And this indentation it shows that this print small is within this if. We looked at if statement in our last class. It shows that this print small is within this if statement. What that means is this print small will only be executed if this condition is met. Do we get it?
Yes.
Now, but this print how are you is not indented inside this if statement. If it were to be here, it means that how are you is now within this if statement. But the way it is that is here. That means it is not within this if statement. And what that means is whether this condition is met or not, whether the condition here is true or not, it will always print how are you once you call on this function. Since how are you is within the function but is not within this if statement, it will always print how are you anytime we call on the function, whether the value of var is lesser than 5 or not. Do you get it? If you do it like this, it means that we are placing this how are you within this if statement, meaning it will only display how are you when we call on this function and if the value of var is also lesser than 5. Do you understand?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so let's turn it like this. When we run this, let me just comment this part out. Oh, sorry, let me comment this part and comment this part. If you run this code, what do you think we will see on the screen?
Nothing actually, because 6 isn't less than 5.
I didn't get the question.
If you run this command, what do you think we will see on the screen?
I think we'll find nothing because 6 is not less than 5.
Nothing.
Okay, we will see how
I
are
think
you.
it will print small. How are you?
We will see how are you. Although we won't see small,
Yes.
but we see how are you.
Yes. Yes. We'll see our.
Yes, I get it now because it's not part of that indentation for the
Good.
if.
Good. It's not within this if statement. So let's run it. Let's see the results. How are you? Well, let's assume the value here is, let's say 1. What do you think we will see?
We will see small, and then it will go ahead to print how are you.
Correct. You will see small and at the same time it print how are you? Any question so far? Okay. Now, I want to introduce something called, that's what you're going to start today, parameterized function. Parameterized. Parameterized. Let me write it out. Parameterized. Something like this. Just like this. Parameterized function. Let's discuss what it means. Let me comment out everything in case we want to see the codes later. So let's go to parameterized function and what it means. A parameterized function, it's like a special function. It's like a super function, as I love calling it. I love calling it super function. You are empowering your function to do more. Let's discuss why we need parameterized function. Look at this scenario. Let's say I have a function. We want to look at before introducing parameterized function. Then we now see after introducing parameterized function. So let's say I have a function. I'll call this first function and I call this my func. Then I'll say I have a variable here called, let's say, name. And let's say the name is I. Then I can say print hello plus name. So of course you know that when we call on this function, it will print hello Taye. Let's proceed. I'll get another function. I'll call it second. And we have this. Then have name, and this is Kenny. I'll say print hello plus name. So we have, when we run this, we will see, when we call on this function, this will print hello Kenny. Let's add one more, and let's say I have Alaba. I'll call this dot. I'll say name equals to, and I'll say things. So when we call on these functions, the first one, the second one, the third one. When we call on the first, it's a print hello Taye. When we call on the second one, we print hello Kenny. When we call on the third one, you say hello Alaba. But you will agree with me that these three functions are doing the same thing, if not for this name. They are doing the same thing. All of them are printing hello name. The line here is the same as the line here, and it's the same as the line here. You see, why building application or why developing, sometimes you will realize that your functions are very similar. They look alike, just little changes. You are only making little changes to them. In that scenario, when you notice that, then what should come to your mind is parameterized function. Remember the principle I talked about the other time, DRY, which stands for don't repeat yourself. We are already repeating ourselves. Now, because we only have 2 lines in each of the functions, it doesn't look like a big deal. But I'm telling you, at a lot of times, while developing, you will realize that maybe, let's assume we have 100 lines of code inside each of these functions. You will realize that maybe about 90 of them are the same in these 3. 90 here is the same as the 90 here, same as the 90 here. Maybe only few lines are different. In fact, sometimes 99 might even be the same. 99, 99, 99. Like the 3 of them will contain the same code, except maybe a single space, a single line or so. In that case, remember the principle, don't repeat yourself. So you need to start thinking, how then do I minimize or how do I like my code such that I won't have to keep repeating myself? Like I said, because we have 2 lines, it doesn't look like a big deal. But when we are developing, we get to some point whereby you have many lines of code. You'll be repeating the same lines of code inside many functions, and that is a bad practice, a bad programming practice. So that brings us to this, don't repeat yourself. What we are now going to do is, because the problem with this code, hello, can we hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
The problem with this code is if I want to add a new person, I will have to, I want it to display, let's say, Tolu. I will say, I have to create a new function. Then I will say name equals to Tolu. And I'll still write the same thing again. Print hello class name. So we now want to make a single function to do the work of all these 4 functions. That is what parameterized function is about. Instead of creating many functions, you now want to upgrade just one function to do the work of multiple functions. So let's do that together. Let me comment all of this. We are going to make this single function to do the work of the 4 of them. So let's see how to do that. Now, if I run this code, what do you think I'll see?
Hello, Tai.
Good. I'll say, I just want to be sure that we are following me. Hello, Tai, we still have that result. So, in order to upgrade this function, what we now do is we remove this name here. We want to make this name dynamic. It's not going to be static. Currently it's static. The way it is it will always be Taye. But we want to remove this and make that name dynamic. So what we will do is, while calling on this function here, we will send a message to the function. I come again. While calling on the function, we will send a message to the function. The function can now receive this message and do anything it wants with that message. So I will come here and add a message. For a start, I will just say print. Let's just do something like this. Print for. We are coming back to the problem we are trying to solve. But before we go to the problem, let's just start with something like this. When we run this function, it will print 4. But what we now want to do is this. We can send that 4 as a message here. So when we call on this function, by putting this 4 here, It means by calling on that function, you are sending a message to the function. But unfortunately, this function is not equipped enough to receive the message. Yes, while calling on the function, we are sending for as a message to this function. But this function cannot receive this message yet. In fact, when we run this, it's going to throw back an error. That's because while you are sending a message, you need to equip this function also with the necessary facilities to receive the sent message. So let's equip it with the necessary tool to receive the message. So I will come here and create a variable here. I can call it anything. I can call it A. So whatever message you send here will be sent as the value of this A. So in this case, 4 will be sent as the value of A. If I come here and I say 8, when we call on this function, this 8 will be sent to this function, and the value of A will be 8. If I come here and I do it like this, 15 will be sent to this function, and the value of A will be 15. So here, when we call on the function, this 4 will be sent as the value of A will be 4. Here when we call on this, 8 will be sent as the value of A will be 8. Here when we call on the function, 15 will be sent as the value of A will be 15. Any question to that point?
None.
So I can now say print A times 3. So when we run this code with the explanation, what do you think we will say?
I'd love to say 4 times 3, but then there's 8 and then there's 15. So I don't know which one.
Okay. This, for the line 15, this 4 will be sent as the value of A. Then it will print 4 times 3 is 12. So line 15 will print 12. Do we get that part?
Yes.
Then line 16, on line 16, this 8 also will still be sent as the value of A. Then it will print 8 times 3 is 24. Line 16 will print 24. Then on line 17, 15 will be sent as the value of A. Then it will print 8 times 3, that's 45. So line 17 will print 45. So this will print 12, this will print 24, and this will print 45. Any question? So
None.
My question is, how do you, is it possible for you to is it possible for you to send line 15 separate, line 16 separate, and line 17 separate, and it will still accomplish the mission?
In fact, they're actually separate. They are not dependent on one another. They are only using the same codes. But whatever happens here is independent of what happens here. Is independent of what happens here. Just that we don't want to keep writing the same code. We don't want to say print 12. Now, okay, let me put it this way. This look, because it's just a single line, we don't really understand why or appreciate why we are using this. Just imagine I have print, let's say hello, then I have another line, I have print. Alright, let's see what happens. When we call on line 17, 4 will be sent as the value of A. It will print 4 times 3, 12. It will print hello and it will print I. So line 17 will print 3 things. It will print 12, it will print hello, it will print I. When it's done, it will come to line 18 again. 8 will be sent as the value of A. It will print 8 times 3, 24. It will print hello, it will print I. Then come to line 19, 15 will be sent as the value of A. It will print 15 times 3 plus 5, it will print hello, it will print I. So if they are not actually dependent, just that they are using the same code. But whatever happens here is independent of what happens here. Is independent of what happens here. Do we understand?
Yes, but can you run it? Let's see.
Okay.
If it will actually print separately.
So 12 LOI, 24 LOI, 45 LOI.
Okay. Thank you.
Seeing is believing.
Charlie.
Let's proceed and see some other things there. We can now say, remember this problem we had initially. we can now adjust this code and do something like this and say, oh sorry, print. So when we call on this function, Taye will be sent as a value of name. So it print hello plus name, hello Taye. When we call on this function, Kenny will be sent as a value of name. It print hello plus name, hello Kenny. When we call on this function, Alaba will be sent as a value of name. It print hello plus name, it print hello Alaba. So line 15 will print hello Taye, line 16 will print hello Kenny, line 17 will print hello Alaba. So that makes it now interesting for us, because imagine I want to print a new name. All I just need to do is to call on the function and add a name here. So let's say I want to print James. I'll just do it like this. So instantly, James will be sent as a value of name, and it's print hello James. I hope you understand it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have this. Now let's proceed. We can send more than one value. We can send multiple values. So just apply them with comma and put a value here. So in this case, I'm sending two values. Unfortunately, this function can only receive one value. So I can add, let's say the second value represents the age. So let's say this is 5, 7, and 9. So Taye will be sent as the value of name, 3 will be sent as the value of age when we call on this function. So I can say hello Taye, I am age years old. So when we call on the first one, it will print hello Taye, I am 3 years old. When we call on the second one, it will print hello Kenny, I am 5 years old. When we call on the third one, it will print hello Alaba, I am 7 years old. When we call on the fourth one, to say hello James, I am 9 years old. Any question? Can we proceed? Press on it and see the results. Let me try this one. What's going on? Oh, integer and string. So we can convert this to string. If this is an integer, you can concatenate an integer with a string. So this str will help us to convert this integer to string. I'll be able to concatenate it here. So I should start here. Let's proceed. So before we go, we want to look at something we call default parameter. Default parameter. What's the meaning of default? Okay, let's stop here tonight. In our next class, we will continue from this place. Now, assignment. Let me come and set out and talk about the assignment for today. Now, create a function. Our next class is next week Monday, so we have the whole of weekend to do the assignment. Create the function, and whenever I call on the function, of course, let's say the name of my function is let's say ABC. I'm just saying, once I call on the function ABC now, I want it to how do you understand? How will you understand this? Okay. Good. When I run the code, I'll come to the terminal and say Python index.py. Immediately we run it. It will say, enter your name. Tell us to enter our name. So I will enter your name. Let's say I enter Taye. Then it will tell me to enter my password. So let's say my password is 1234. Now it's now say registration successful. So it's not next is it tell me to login. Note it. Number one, when I get there, to tell me enter my name and enter my password. So it's a registration successful. That means I've registered. Next is tell me to login. To login, I will still enter my name, enter your name and password. Enter your password. Then, if it is also 1234, then it will tell me login successful. Once you complete this, please message me so that I can give you the next step. I want us to take it step by step. So say login successful. Once you do it to this point, please message me on WhatsApp, then I will advance it a bit. Do you get what you have to do?
No, I don't understand what we're doing.
No, I don't understand anything.
Once we run this code, I will come here. If you run this code now, if I say Python, the name of the file, it will tell me to enter my name, enter your name. I will enter my name, any name of my choice. And when I enter the name, it will tell me to enter my password. It's as though I'm registering on an application. So it will tell me enter your name. I will enter a name of any name of my choice. I can enter James, I can enter Tolu, I can enter Ocho, I can enter any name. Then it will tell me enter my password. I will enter any password of my choice. So let's say I typed 1234. Do we understand this at this point?
So basically, you want us to transcribe this English language into coding language.
Good. So it will tell me to enter my name and enter my password. After that, immediately I enter the password, any password of my choice, it will say registration successful. It will display this text, registration successful. Next, it will now tell me to log. It will tell me, okay, login. Then it will now bring enter your name again. If the value here, if what I enter here is the same as what I have here, and it will also tell me to enter my password, if both of them are correct, that remember at the point of registration, I've entered my name and my password. So at this point of logging in, if whatever I enter here,
That deal.
you will get it. You get it. It's not as necessary. Once you see this, don't worry, I'm even sure that you get it. If whatever you enter, if it's exactly what you used for registration, then it will tell you login successful. Or if it's not correct, if any of them, maybe the name, maybe I made a mistake with the name, instead of Taye and I put as Taye, of course, it's no longer the same as this. You just tell me incorrect name or pass. Or so just tell me incorrect name or password. Then it will tell me to log in again. So it will tell me to enter my name again and password. If it's correct, it will tell me login successful. But if it's not correct, it say incorrect name or password, login again. I will enter my till it's correct. Do you understand what you are doing now?
I'm confused.
Come again.
Taiwo, just so I understand, as a clue for the assignment, are we using these functions that we've learned today?
Just understand that whatever I will give you will be based on what we've done so far. You will need functions, you will need if statements, you will need variables, you need everything, combination of everything we've done so far. Like I said, we are building on what has been learned, what has been taught in the past. We are building on that. So you'll be using when we are done with this stage, we'll do the next thing. We will see it will require us to do everything, to use everything we've learned so far.
Okay, Taiwo. Is the let me second what you just said now. Is the elif will the elif be involved in all this?
I don't know.
No, we just wanted a hint so that we know what you are doing.
I don't know. If you get a project, will you reach out to me? Oh, I want to read.
If Mr. Taiwo tells us all this, we are not challenged now.
Okay, let's go and try it.
Okay.
Let's just take it as a challenge. Okay, he has given us an assignment. It's quite difficult, but we can. Let's just try.
Thank you very much. So, again, it will tell you to enter your name and password. Then after entering it, you say registration successful. Then login. Tell you to enter your name again. If what is here, the name and the password you entered at the point of login, if it's the same as the ones you use for registration, it will tell you login successful. But if they are not the same, it will say incorrect name or password. Then it will tell you to login. Then after logging in, it will tell you to enter your name and password. If they are not the same with what you use for registration, again, it will not. It will tell you incorrect name or password. Tell you to log in. Then again, not like that. But once it's successful, it say login successful. So, that's the assignment. Once you complete it, just reach out.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Please, before you finish giving up, we have the assignment already. Now, the last exercise, the last example you solved, please, can you resolve it for us
Okay,
before we go?
the parameterized function.
Yes.
Okay, or let's do this way. Don't worry, you are not going to need parameterized function for this assignment. So in the next class, I will explain parameterized function again. Like once we get to class, I'll first explain parameterized function.
Okay.
Then before we do any other thing, we won't need it for this assignment. Do you get it?
Yes, I understand. I would do my best. But Taiwo, if you have 5 minutes, could you please run through the last assignment? I saw you doing it at the beginning of the class, but I wasn't quite there yet.
Okay, the last assignment. The class is recorded. You can just watch the recording. It's still the same. It's the same. Any other question? If at any point after watching it, if you have any question, just reach out to me.
No problem. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Any question? Thank you very much. Enjoy. Have a lovely night rest. You are
You too.
senior
Bye.
developers. Good night.